Hey, Matt Scratch here. So today I'm going to show you guys the proper way to swap tires over and just give you a few tips that will help you avoid having any problems. Believe it or not, it's not as simple as it would seem. The first thing that's very important is mark either your tire or your wheel or both where it's located on the car. So that's the rear left tire. So I've marked it there. And this is very important because especially since these tires don't have any directional arrows on them, when they're new they can be mounted either way, that's no problem. But as they get used, the sidewalls start to stretch on them, like all the cords inside here, they will all stretch in one direction. And if you rotate the direction of the tire later on after that's happened, it'll start to stretch the other direction. What happens then is it effectively raises the height of the sidewall, and you'll get a cup in the center of your tread. You'll have a low spot. When you run your hand across it, you'll feel a big dip in the middle, and that creates like a hollow between your tire and the road, and you'll have a really loud noise too on the highway, and it just won't work. Your tire's beginning to separate, and you'll soon have to find new tires. So when you're rotating your tires, make sure you keep them straight so that doesn't happen to you, so you have them all on the right way. And if you ever buy any used tires, make sure that you can confirm which way they were last rotating. Okay, so next you want to jack up the car. And it is a good idea to use the jack stand. I'm not going to because I'm not climbing under the car, but I will recommend that you do so. Now it's time to remove the lug nuts. If you're doing this by hand, make sure to break them loose before you jack up the car, otherwise you'll have a time holding the tire steady. But I've got my handy cordless impact here. So with the wheel removed, you'll notice that the hubs painted up. Well, it's starting to get a little rusty now, but I try to keep my hubs painted up because this will prevent your wheels from sticking to them, and of course for appearances as well. But make sure that if you have any rusty scale or anything on there, you clean it off first. Wire wheel it really good before you paint it, because that's another thing. You want to have this nice and clean, otherwise you could have a vibration or you could have your wheel come loose later. So I'm also replacing the lug nuts on the car, and I got these really nice McGuard lug nuts, and they're extremely high quality, so I figured I'd mention that. If you're looking for lug nuts, maybe check out that brand. Lug nuts, of course, can all be different threads and whatnot, and this bevel is very critical that it's the correct angle for your car. So when you're getting new lug nuts, how you check that is you hold the bevels together on the new one with the old one, and you should end up with a parallel line between the faces on the hexes. If you know what I mean, if the bevels are pressed together there, this should be a perfectly straight line. You should always oil your threads. You're not torquing on thread bind, you're torquing on the clamping force of the lug nut against the rim. So make sure you lube these up so they don't bind and so they come off easily next time. Okay, so we're almost ready to put our wheel on the car. This is the winter wheel that I'm putting on. And you can see it has some scale on there. And so if you put it on like that, you could end up with an uneven surface here. Then your wheel will be off balance. You'll get a vibration, or your wheel could even come loose. So very important, just take a wire brush, give it a good scrub. But you do want to be careful that you're not like brushing down onto here, especially if you have like a nice alloy wheel or whatever. Most of them have a clear coating on them, and you could scar it up and then it would start to corrode prematurely. So be careful for that. There's one other thing I like to do is just go around here like this. Make sure there's no dirt, because that can also throw the wheel off balance. You can see there's some dust there, and the reason why I'm just using a a piece of shop towel is because I don't want to, again, I don't want to scrape that. I mean, this is an old wheel and there's probably no clear coat left, but on the newer wheels, if you have a newer car, it's going to have some protective coating on there, and if you take the wire brush to it, it's going to scar it all up, and yeah, you don't want to do that. Okay, so now you want to get your lug nuts started, and I just like to start them by hand. If the socket works good on these deep holes here. Okay, so I'm going to run them down with my impact. You certainly don't want to torque them up with your impact. I'm just snapping them tight, maybe 20-30 foot-pounds. Just do the first two opposite, and just don't hammer them down. Then I'll go back to the first ones, give them a bit more so I'm not. Okay, and now that they're all snugged up like that, I'm going to drop the tire down, and I'll hand torque them with a torque wrench to about 100 foot-pounds on this vehicle. It'll vary depending on your vehicle, of course. Okay, so I got my torque wrench set here, and what I like to do is I just I go around and give each one a little bit more, and I keep going around in circles. Some people like to crisscross, and that's not really a bad thing at all. I'm not recommending against it. If you want to do it that way, fine. But just make sure you're keeping track of it. I like this because I know I won't forget to tighten one this way. And I just go a little bit each revolution. I make it a little tighter until it clicks on the torque wrench. And of course, when you're torquing, you don't want to be jerky. You want to bring that up to torque slowly. And then I'm going to go around once more and check them all after they all click. So while you've got the car all jacked up, you might as well just check everything, check your try and wobble your wheel side to side and grab it top and bottom and try and wobble it. And this is just to check your suspension, your steering components for any wear. Make sure there's no slack in anything or any clunks when you do this. Your wheel bearings, whatever. Rock your wheel back and forth a little and listen for any dragging sounds in case your brakes are dragging or something. So one other thing you want to pay attention to is where you're jacking. Some older cars like this one have some rust in the original jacking location, so I prefer to go into a solid suspension component. Just make sure whatever you're jacking on solid, and pay attention as you're jacking it up that it's not damaging anything. Spread out the weight with a block of wood or something if you need to. Installed, you do want to make sure that you're putting winter tires all the way around. That business of just putting them on one end or the other is dangerous, so make sure you do them all, and I highly recommend winter tires. They are a great investment. I really like the Goodyear brand of winter tires, but there's other good ones out there too, of course. So checking and retorquing your wheels about 100 kilometers after you put them on is a good idea. Normally you won't find any loose. The tire shops do it more for liability reasons. They put that little tag for you to bring the car back and have it checked and retorqued, and if you don't, then they won't be liable for any future issues you may have as a result of their work. So we've successfully got the wheel installed, and now the only thing I'm going to do is just check the tire pressure. Pretty sure you'll be able to figure that out on your own, so I won't show you. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.